be here. I'm going to stand in front because we're friends. And excuse my back. So my name is David Holden, and I am a Democrat running for Congress to replace Francis Rooney. Why does that need to be done? And in a lot of ways, my campaign started in this room. This is the first place that I spoke about my candidacy a year and a half ago. I'm a member of this group. We've become friends and allies and comrades in the struggle to, not to overstate it, and I don't think I am, to save our country. And I'm here because of the example set for me by my mom and dad, Nikki and Harvey Holden, who, my dad was raised in real poverty in Philadelphia. His parents were immigrants. His dad was not often home, so mom really had the burden of raising him and his 3 siblings. And then when he was 18, he volunteered to help fight for his country and defeat an immense threat to everyone's life in World War II. And he was a U.S. Army infantryman, and he was in Germany shortly after D-Day. And because of that service, which I'm grateful he came home from, this nation sent him and millions of men and women who had served to college. And so from poverty, that opened the door of opportunity for our family. On my mom's side, my family on my mom's side is from Texas and New Orleans, and then she was raised in Brooklyn, and her dad was a salesman, and her folks were able to send her to college, and she was the first on her side to go to college. And we know that when one person in a family goes to college, that opens the door. So all of my cousins have gone to college. I was raised, my sister and I were raised knowing that that opportunity would be there for us, and it was. And that changed our lives, it changed our connection to this country, and it allowed us to prosper. And that's something we need to hold on to because we're losing it. Today, it is more and more difficult for families to afford college. Students are coming out of college with immense debt loads. And when you talk to the Fox News crowd and they say, these kids should be pulling themselves up by their bootstraps and working their way through college like we did. Well, in the 1960s, you could work your way through college because college cost $2,000. And as a nation, we made massive investments in public education at every level because we knew that that was an investment in our own future prosperity. That's not happening today. Students are coming out of college with $100,000 and more of debt. And these are not, Ivy League schools. These are state schools and good, schools that everybody has access to, but they're incredibly expensive. The rate of inflation for college is up there with the rate of inflation for healthcare. It's just out of sight. So I had that opportunity, and we have to preserve that opportunity for our children and grandchildren going forward. And we're simply not doing that now. And then my parents raised up my sister and I in their values, which was service. My parents were involved in the civil rights movement. They were involved in the fight for environmental protections. Later on, they were involved in fighting for LGBT rights. And they were also involved in our community for my sister and me. So they were both scout leaders. My mom was a lifelong Girl Scout leader. My dad was my Cub master. And I loved scouting, and I loved the programs at the YMCA where I was involved. And in fact, I learned how to write a bill and how to debate and how to present my opinion fairly but forcefully through the YMCA. And I ate it up. I was a total history buff and politics nerd at 12. My friends were studying baseball cards. I was reading the Almanac of American Politics because it just connected with me. And in the greatest country in history, the right to speak up and stand up and speak out for what we believe in, to fight injustice, is what made this country great, and what we need to continue to do to keep this country great. And right now, those things they're under threat. So I'm a lifelong Democrat. My parents were lifelong Democrats. I think those values matter. So I will not be endorsing any Republicans for office this year, and I will be working, because it's not just this race. Our candidate, our nominee, will lead the ticket in Southwest Florida, which is now 25 people, mostly women, running for everything from mosquito control board to the state senate. And we need a strong leader for that ticket. We need to re-elect Bill Nelson. We need to elect a Democratic governor if we're going to elect a Democratic president in 2 years. And I know the campaign we've built with hundreds and hundreds of volunteers across this district. We have an office here in Cape Coral. We have an office down in Naples. We have done 50,000 voter contacts in the last 3 months, knocking on doors and picking up the phone, because that's how real campaigns win. We haven't had a strong Democratic slate in 30 years here, and we do now. So I believe my experience and my training allows me to be the candidate who can lead us to victory, because we have to defeat Francis Rooney. And this isn't just because he's a miserable human being. That's just a bonus. It's because he has voted with this administration 97% of the time. And if you go to his website, he looks like the president of the Sierra Club. But if you go to his voting record, he has voted to slash the budget of the EPA. He supported our withdrawal from the Paris Accords. We're the only nation on earth that is not part of the Paris Agreement. He has supported a governor who refuses to acknowledge that climate change is real. So the easy solutions are off the table. Right? We squandered 20 years on solving the problems of the Everglades. We can't afford one more minute of wasted time. And anyone who lives here in this community knows toxic algae bloom, red tide. And guess what? It's not a secret anymore. It's international news. And in this district, the environment is the economy. We are dependent on tourism. We're dependent on the quality of life here. That's why I moved here. Streeter and I moved here to be closer to family, and because we love the natural beauty of the beaches. Oops. Right? I'm clearing my throat because of what's in the air constantly. We have to address this problem. We have to acknowledge climate change is real. We have to stop the destruction of the EPA. They took science off of the EPA website. They are hiding studies. They are cutting budgets. They are repealing environmental, health, financial system regulations that have been in place for 30 years and more. They're trying to undo the New Deal. We have dishonest, disrespectful, selfish, greedy leadership in the White House, being supported by Francis Rooney and the Republicans in Congress. It has to stop now. We don't have any time to waste. This is a winnable seat, and here's how we're going to do it. So we've already built a campaign across this district that's poised to win. Here's the path to victory. It is turning out the Democrats. We've been registering hundreds of Democrats, as have many other people. It is making sure that our union partners understand our commitment to union issues and to the union movement, and energizing them, which is happening. So I have been endorsed by the Florida AFL-CIO. After this meeting today, you are all invited to stay and do a labor phone bank for my campaign and for the other labor-endorsed candidates. I'm a former union member. I worked in the hospital kitchen in my community in White Plains, New York. It was the best job you could get after school because it paid a union wage. So I was making in 1976 what is the equivalent today of $35 an hour, and it was which is a living wage. And it was at a time when my dad had lost his job and he had a period of unemployment. And that money that I brought in kept our family afloat. Now, I was 16. I wish I had handed it over with a little more grace, but I didn't. Streeter, my wife, best friend, and partner, is a current union member. Her first career was as an actor, and she's a member of the Screen Actors Guild and Actors Equity, and was an active union leader when she lived in Pittsburgh. And what did that mean for her to be a union member? It meant that when she got a job, she made a decent wage, but it meant even more importantly that the working conditions were safe. And we know that when unions thrive, all Americans thrive. When wages go up for union members, they go up for everybody. When union members get better benefits, whether it's health care or retirement, everyone gets better benefits. Well, unions have been under assault for 30 years. We are fighting back now, and this is where we're making that fight. Francis Rooney would destroy every union in this country tomorrow if he could, and they're getting a pretty good jump on it. Right? They're getting a pretty good jump on it. So that's why we have to stop him, and that's why we have to win the House, because when we win the House, the first thing we get is the subpoena, which means we can do the constitutionally required job of Congress, which they have failed in utterly under this president, to oversight, to investigate what the executive branch is doing. And they don't make any bones about it. Their campaign is the Republicans have to keep the House so that we can keep the secrets, right? We can keep the corruption under wraps. We've now seen that the VA is not being run by any competent experts in Washington. It's being run by 3 guys who are members of Mar-a-Lago, so that they can privatize even more of government services, and they can shrink the services to raise their profits. So, the issues are endless. Healthcare. How do we stop the destruction of the Affordable Care Act? In the richest country on earth, healthcare is a right, not a luxury, not a privilege. Francis Rooney thinks it's a luxury. Everyone deserves and must have quality healthcare, not access, actual care. So how are we going to get there? It's not going to happen overnight. I believe Medicare for All is the best way forward, but there are many other plans that we have to consider. But not only do we have to win the House and the Senate, but we have to have a partner in the White House.